Welcome back to another episode of GRW Podcast. And I'm your host, Clay. And joining me today are our CEO, Clarice Dallo, and our former business debt manager, Rita Atamoza. So today's topic is something every insurance agency owners, entrepreneur, and business leader needs to hear. So the hidden cost of not hiring support staff. So many people think hiring help is expensive, but what if not hiring is actually costing you much more? So let's dive in. So let's start. Madam Clarice, you've talked to hundreds of insurance agency owner over the year when you are starting the company.
Mhm.
So the question is, what's the biggest reason people put off hiring people or hiring
Well,
help?
whether sure. So, really, what I've seen, and honestly, I still see it to this day. It's budget, of course. Just to give you an idea, I'm on the West Coast. Usually, licensed producers, if you factor in the cost of hiring help and in-office help, um, it would have to be at least 60,000 for their salary, $60,000. And then of course the commissions are going to be there, and then of course you have to pay, your employer share, whether you're the type of employer who would pay for benefits, their 401ks, if you would offer health insurance. It's costly. So a lot of the times, of course, as a business owner, you would want to really keep your expenses low, but also at the same time balance if you have enough work for people, and if your team is still able to, scale the company, at the same time maintain the current book of business. um, I would say the number one thing I've seen is going to be budget. Number two, second, most objection that I've seen from agency owners is they're not sure if the company that they're dealing with is a legitimate company. Whether it's outsourced or whether it's here hiring in office staff, as a business owner, it's usually a gamble. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, sometimes, somebody with, let's say, 3 years experience in one company, captive agency. They would then, transition and would want to sell more carriers. So they would transition to the independent side, and they're not able to thrive. They weren't doing the same numbers or vice versa. But honestly, it's usually from captive agency, and then they go on the independent side. Um, the reality is when every time we hire people, it's a gamble. You know, sometimes it's, performance wise, they're doing really well, but then they end up clashing with the rest of the team. It wasn't a good energy fit. So I would say, those are the two things. Budget, it's really a gamble. Even if you had that budget, you don't know if it's gonna work out or not. We hope and pray this person is gonna end up end up getting along with the team, and that they are gonna produce, what they say they are going to produce. And for us, an outsourcing staffing company, um, a lot of people, of course, are very scared of scams. I think, and unfortunately, I can't tell you like how many people in a week I would talk to, wherein they would say, my bank account was compromised. Somebody used my debit card. In fact, Rita, not too long ago, a couple of months ago, one of our longtime customers, we've known him for like over 5 years, it was his business account that was compromised. And the reality is, because when you deal with a company that is also registered outside of the US, it just opens you up to a lot more exposure. Because what do our VAs do? A lot of the times they get copies of the driver's licenses, sensitive data, right? So, of course, it's not just the business owners, it's not just the agency owners. we are terrified of our information, of our data to land in the wrong hands. It doesn't have to be, somebody from outsourced. More actually, it um, it is a deeper issue when when your information lands in the hands of somebody that is outsourced,
Somebody.
because there's no accountability. Good luck.
Yeah.
Versus, at least here there's a semblance of accountability because at least they're in the US. So, you can at least try to get them and hold them accountable. So that's what, two issues that I really see, why, a lot of our customers, when we talk to them on the phone, they would say, oh, call me like 3 months from now when the season is busier, or, call me, like a year from now because I'm not really looking to scale
Mm.
at this time.
Maybe the reason why data security is very important of being an edge of a company, because it takes care of the data security of those clients. So I actually remember, Miss Clarice, when you are trying to discuss with us the the how risky if those details of their IDs is like visible to other people.
Yeah, you can, if it falls into the right hands, who would know what to do with it? And the sad part is ChatGPT would tell you. That's just the truth. Everyone's on ChatGPT all over the world.
And
So,
I like
people are very wary. Yeah.
mhm. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that slowly builds until you overwhelm, Madam. So, Madam Clarice, before starting Global Remote Workers, did you experience this yourself? Like, yeah, those things that you mentioned? Because I believe that on building this company, you also having this experience. Like, you have to hire someone to help you.
So, obviously, I'm here in the US. I need somebody sort of like a boots on the ground type of person.
Yep.
In the beginning, much like what I said, it even for me, who's been, hiring and have hired thousands of employees in the Philippines, it's still, sometimes you are not able to foresee how it wouldn't be a good fit. So, yeah, in the beginning, I had a part time assistant, I had a full time assistant. I think it took me three assistants before I met Rita. And, fortunately, it clicked. She was with us for 3 years, and we were really able to stabilize the company because the first few years, I've told you guys I had to do DoorDash and Uber just to keep the company alive, right? So yeah, hiring the right support can absolutely, change your life. And of course, there were days, especially, when you're a new business owner. I was an immigrant, so I was earning everything that I could. And at the same time, I couldn't get any money out of the company. Otherwise, I wouldn't make payroll or wouldn't be able to pay for licenses and platforms, right? um, her energy and her passion and her belief in the company that fired me up. So, sometimes when you're a very small company, you really have to hold on to any positivity that you could. And she has been, such a important piece of that.
That
So,
makes her the key employee for this company, as you said on our
yeah, and
last
that's why she's listed
episode.
as a key employee in the US papers here. So,
All right. So next, you've
mm-hmm.
been with Global Remote Workers through a lot of growth. Rita,
Mm-hmm.
looking back, what accomplishment or experience are you most proud of during your time with the company?
She's like,
Well, I've actually I've handled a lot, or I've met a lot of aspiring VAs. I managed them. Madam Clarice gave me the opportunity to be, to be a leader And also, I've met different types of insurance agency owners that we were able to help, and hearing from their point of view what RVAs help them the most is really such an a great feeling for me, because it's really hard to get their attention. It's hard to gain their trust, and then all of us, after giving us the opportunity, giving them the help that they need, and then you will hear from them that it's really a great help, and then they ask for more other VAs to grow and make sure that this is a long-term partnership. So that thing is um one of the thing that I will really cherish throughout the years I have here with Global Remote Workers.
It's my
All right.
moment. That's why.
Okay. So, all right. So, thank you, Rita, for that answer. We might experience that, or I might experience that in the future if I will hire people. So, yeah, thanks for having a insight on how you or what the experience is. So, yeah, let's talk about burnout because I think people underestimate it. So, Rita, what are the some signs you've seen that tell you an owner is trying to do too much?
So, one of the biggest signs is when an agency owner is involved in every single task of the business. So, when they're answering client calls, following up on leads, mortgage follow up, claims follow up, um, email management, processing paperwork, like filling out applications, and so on and so forth. So, when I was the business dev manager, I saw that many insurance agency owners weren't struggling because they lack of opportunities. It's because they were struggling because they didn't have enough time. So their days are filled with tasks that could be delegated. Those the thing that Miss Clarice always mentioned, we always those tasks that can be done by an unlicensed agent can be delegated to our VA so that they could free up their time,
Their
and
time.
they can focus more in growing or scaling up the agency. Another clear is that when they start getting delayed in responses because they have to check their emails, like remember what we had with the prospect that we had before. So she has two emails. She needs to check each email. She has Gmail. She also has Outlook. So she have to check each emails one by one. So it really takes so much of her time. Instead, she should be focusing more on growing and scaling her business. But she chooses to do that task instead of delegating it. And it's not helping her to scale up, and it's getting her, or it's she's starting to be overwhelmed with those tasks. So that's usually when we recommend bringing in trained virtual assistant. The goal is not to reduce workload, but it's to create system that allows the agency owners to focus on what they can really do, and at the same time scale their agency while focusing on those tasks that will give revenue to their agency.
Yep. So thank you.
I
Yeah. So
wanna
let's buzz one of the biggest myths. So people say nobody can do it as well as I can. So what do you think about this, Miss Madam Clarice?
Well, you might be right. Nobody can, because, say for example, me, when there's something I want to handle myself, then, there are really just some things that I have to do as, the owner of the company. But there are a lot of things, simple, repetitive things that doesn't need a license. Time consuming things that take up so much of my time and energy, right?
Yep.
The reality is we all have 24 hours a day. And while it's true, it is nerve wracking the first few times that you delegate. You just really have to, create opportunities for people too. And I've never seen a business that isn't a trust based relationship, whether it's for your suppliers, your clients, or your employees. You you really have to delegate some of those tasks. And when I say delegate, of course you have to check their work the first few times and then maybe correct them and guide them. This way, next time they can do it themselves, and then
They learn
you
from
would
it.
have a little bit more. Yeah, you'll have a little bit more assurance. So
Yep.
not only did you give them an opportunity to have a living wage, you also were able to train them so they could survive in the industry. But Rita, what about you? What do you think about this?
Well, one of the biggest differences is also how we operate, madam. I totally agree that nobody can do it as well as I can, because when client work with us, they're not just hiring a single or one virtual assistant. They're gaining a support system before we match with before we match a VA with an agency. We take time to understand the agency's workflow, the software that they use, the tools, the system, and the type of support that they need, so we can choose the right and fit virtual assistant. And also, behind the scenes, we handle recruitment, screening, training, and we always make sure that the onboarding is smooth. Yes, the payroll. We also check in regularly with both the client and the VA, to make sure that the system is running smoothly. And if questions come up or additional training is needed, our team is here to help. And your special skills and your knowledge is needed, because we always make sure that we address the training gaps, madam.
For sure, for sure. And, I just want to make, something clear for the potential clients that are watching this. So, as you know, insurance guidelines, carriers, those are all different, right? So, when you sign up with our company, there has to be like a 2 hour onboarding meeting wherein our team would meet with the agency team, the POCs, wherein we talk about the nitty gritty details, what is expected of our team, what do we expect from them. So really, it's a collaboration of, and then they sign off on that onboarding document that, okay, this is our service level agreement, this is the X number of tasks, the platforms, this is the expectations from both ends. So, really, it's a collaboration. You could be the best agency and operate how you are. And we, with my team and our experience, like collective experience, the VAs and the admin team and me, but we need that direction, that clear cut direction from the agency owners, from the licensed producers, from the point of contact. So really, it's a partnership, and it really makes us so happy when a person who only was able to afford one VA in the beginning is now adding more, because that means
Yes,
we
correct.
are growing as their company is growing.
And we're effective. That's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, it's an effective partnership. Again,
Yes.
like we we could say that, oh, we have all this experience, we are
Yeah.
great, but honestly, it would only work
Yep.
if they allow it to work, if our energies match, and if we are both organized and
Yes.
clear expectations from the beginning. So that's just really what I want to throw out there. We can't do it alone, nor can they do it on their own, right? That's why we have to collab.
Yeah. So one thing I love about our company is the client don't just get VA. So there's a lot happening behind the scene. So Rita, can you talk about that or give us a sample scenario?
As I've mentioned earlier, Clay, so clients are not just hiring one virtual assistant, so they're gaining a whole support system. So yeah, that means an agency owner doesn't have to worry about managing everything. So we help them and we focus on so that they can focus on scaling their business to make sure that they have reliable and well supported team behind them. At the end of the day, our goal isn't just to provide a VA, it's to become a long term partnership in helping insurance agencies scale with confidence because they will not be I know they are confident already of what they do, but they will be more confident if they know that they have support system that they can rely on, especially if they are not in the office. So because this is how I see where our virtual assistant shine the most is because agents can work even if they're not in the office. They can delegate tasks. They can give instructions and our VAs can handle it while they are not yet in the office or they're still traveling. And then there's an urgency that needs to be done. So our VAs shine in that scenario.
All right. So yeah, Madam Clarice, one task every owner should delegate first. What will be the priority or the first task that they can delegate?
So most of our customers, of course, we wanna ease the VA into their agency, right? A lot of our customers, they would start them with data migration, because it also familiarizes the VA with, how big is the book of business, what are the platforms that they use. So when you sign up with Global Remote Workers, the VA is already pre-trained on the platforms, but of course it's very different when it's a hands-on experience, right? So a lot of them, would start with data migration, for example, easy links to AMS 360, or organize my email and then put this in the client file or client folders. So I would say, start with that if you have anything like that. We do have, we've had customers who would want an answering service. You can do that too, but just to set expectations, no endorsements on the first day, please, because that is just too much to handle for an unlicensed person on the other side of the world. You can start them with an answering service, and then just transfer whether is it on the service department, sales department, who's with personal lines, who's with commercial lines, who handles cancel audits. So those are simple enough tasks, because our average VA has at least 3 years insurance experience. How do we do that? We pay more than our competitors, so we are able to attract the top talent in the industry, or at least in the VA industry in the Philippines. So even if somebody is coming with experience, say for example me, if I apply to say State Farm, or I apply to an agency which requires me to sell in multiple states, I don't think they would expect me to answer the phone calls on the first day, and then all of a sudden I'm supposed to quote this person who is in New York. That's not something you would do to your licensed agency either, right? You need to at least debrief them on the agency structure, on the agency defaults, how the SOPs are when it comes to endorsements, how do you want things done, which carriers you work with, the platforms, who are the POCs, who does what. So I would say, always start with that. This way, we don't overwhelm the outsourced VA, and we also don't, promise the moon and the stars. We're not promising plug and play. Plug and play to an extent, but don't expect a local producer productivity from an unlicensed support on the other side of the world. So yes, that's what they should delegate first. Start with the simple tasks.
Yeah, my opinion or my insight here is like, if I'm going to ask by one of our clients what will be the one task that they should delegate first, I think I can consider the email management and also the answering phone as one, because on this task, our clients miss a lot of opportunity because they don't have time to answer those emails, those calls, because they
Marketing
focus
is
on
super expensive. My
yes.
agency, they spent $15,000 on marketing. And then we work with another telemarketing company. Every call transfer is $50. Doesn't matter whether, once it's transferred to the producer, that's $50 for marketing budget. So, like those missed calls are like expensive. Not just the opportunity cost, but also, the marketing budget out the door.
Yeah, that's the perks of having a support because you might get those opportunity and might help you to expand your account and your business. So, all right. So before we wrap up, I love for each of you to leave our listener with one piece of advice. So let's start with you, Miss Rita.
So my advice to all the insurance agency owners who are listening to us is just simple. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed before you ask for help. So a lot of agency owners think they need to do everything by themselves. It's okay to be a one-man show, but the truth is, sustainable growth comes from building the right team and trusting the right people. So start by identifying the tasks that take up so much of your time. It doesn't need to be necessary, or it doesn't require expertise, and then delegate those. And when you start to free up your day-to-day administrative work, then you can focus on what truly drives revenue to your agency by serving your clients, building relationships, scaling up your agency, and growing your book of business.
So how about you, Madam?
So, one piece of advice I would want to leave our listeners, agency owners or business owners, because it's not just the agency owners that we service. Our company has been around for a few years now. There's a lot of people who are skilled on the other side of the world. They're just waiting for opportunity. It's a very low risk investment for you. Our contracts are enforceable in the US and in the Philippines. We are registered in both companies. So, if it, strikes a chord with you, wherein you need to scale, there's so much more opportunities for you, but you are bogged down by simple repetitive tasks that take up your time. As an agency owner, your time is a company asset. Your energy is a company asset. So help protect that asset, and especially if you're in insurance exists to protect that asset. How are you protecting that asset, that company asset of yours, which is your time and energy? So again, on average, we are one fourth the price of hiring an in-office staff, but that price doesn't necessarily mean that the quality is not there. Um, Again, I was a VA in the Philippines. Right now, I am the top producer in a 30-year-old captive agency here in Las Vegas, Nevada. If I can do it with the proper opportunity, training, and support, we can turn anybody in the Philippines with the proper training and support, and of course with your trust in the team, and in the VA that you are getting from us.
So yeah, thank you for joining us for another episode of GRW Podcast. And if you enjoy today's conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with another business owner who needs to hear it. So yeah, we'll see you in the next one or episode. And thank you for watching.